Like humans and other animals in the wild, bears tend to take it personally whenever someone gets into their personal space or challenges their predatory instincts. In the vast wilderness of Texas, the weather was unusually cool that day for September. Ethan Hale, an introverted outdoorsman, woke up early that morning with one goal: to explore the remote trails of the Chisos Mountains. The 34-year-old seasoned hiker had been planning this trip for a while now, and he expected to have a meditative experience in the solitude of the beautiful landscape views. But fate was about to slap Ethan in the face that day. He was about to unknowingly get into a terrifying encounter with one of nature's most dangerous animals, a hungry grizzly bear. Being an experienced hiker, Ethan prepared in advance, carrying enough food, water, and a GPS tracker in case he lost his way in an unexplored area. On top of that, he carried a compass just in case his GPS malfunctioned. For a long time, Ethan loved exploring untouched ground since he loved the thrill of taking up a new challenge, even if that meant going into areas other hikers had avoided due to the fear of the unknown. Throughout his life, Ethan hiked his way through forests, deserts, and mountains, but never in his wildest dreams did he expect to encounter a grizzly bear in a place like Texas. Although he knew that there would be dangers he could encounter, he expected to encounter animals like the famous Texas mountain lions or the desert rattlesnake. In the worst-case scenario, he expected a black bear, a predator not as aggressive as a grizzly. With the curiosity of a cat, Ethan set out on a lesser-known trail that wound through thick vegetation, rugged cliffs, and steep inclines. He was excited by the mere thought of the new sights he would come across that other hikers, who were not as brave as he was, had missed out on. By mid-afternoon, he had trekked deep into the wilderness, far from the main park roads or any other hikers. The quiet was peaceful, almost meditative, as the wind rustled the dry leaves and the sound of his footsteps echoed through the canyons. When he reached a clearing, Ethan paused to take in the breathtaking view and get lost in the silent moment. The golden sunlight cast long shadows over the desert, and the towering peaks of the Chisos Range stretched endlessly before him. He took a swig of water and sat on a rock, enjoying the silence. In his perspective, this is exactly what he was looking for, an unexplored area just there for the taking. He seemed to be getting the thrill of the hike when things drastically changed. Suddenly, a strange noise from the bushes disturbed his tranquil environment. This noise was unlike any he had ever heard in all his hiking adventures. His heart started racing. He listened carefully to the surroundings, hoping that the growl was an instance of his imagination and that everything was okay. But the growl continued, growing louder and closer. Following this, Ethan slowly stood up, his senses on high alert, trying to triangulate the source of the growls. He scanned the area around with his wide-open eyes, hoping to spot the cause of the noise, as well as spot any movement from the direction of the growl. And that's when he saw it, an enormous shape moving through the bushes, less than 50 yards away from where he was standing. As he watched, the creature emerged from the bushes, with its large head lifting as it sniffed the air. It growled even louder as it locked eyes with him. Ethan's blood ran cold, and he froze. Before him stood a grizzly bear, at least 7 feet tall on all fours, walking straight towards him. As panic surged through him, his first thought was how he could get as far away from the bear's sight as possible. But years of hiking experience kicked in. He knew that running was the worst thing he could do, as it would trigger the bear's predatory instinct, which would make it run after him. It was a battle he would definitely lose, considering the speed the bear had due to its enormous strides. Instead, he slowly backed away, keeping his eyes on the massive animal. Despite his mind racing through survival strategies, the reality of the situation hit him. He wasn't carrying bear spray or any weapon, not even a pistol, and the nearest help was miles away. At this time, the bear had already spotted him. Its eyes locked onto Ethan's, and in a terrifying moment of realization, he saw the predator's muscles tense. It wasn't just a curious animal. It was hungry and hunting, and had just spotted an easy snack. Without warning, the grizzly charged at him. With all the adrenaline pumping, Ethan's survival instincts told him to run. But he held his ground for as long as he could, making himself appear as large as possible, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Hey, get back! Help! You get back! Help me! Help!" His voice cracked with fear, but the bear didn't slow down. It covered the distance between them with terrifying speed. Its massive puss tearing into the dirt, and its tongue out, almost salivating for the meal it was about to devour. When the bear was just a few yards away, Ethan did the only thing he could now, hide behind a large boulder, hoping that it would give enough cover from the predator charging towards him. However, the bear was more intelligent than he thought. and it did not seem to be in the mood to let the human snack go. Using its powerful paws and intelligence, it sent rock obstacles flying easily, rounding the boulder to reach Ethan. Ethan did not have the chance to react, so the bear slammed into him with its powerful paws. The bear's claws raked his torso, shredding his shirt and cutting deep into his flesh as it growled in his face. In agony and great pain, Ethan screamed, trying to roll away from what seemed to be a bad way to die. But the bear was not willing to let him off the hook that easily. The bear knocked Ethan down and pinned him to the ground with its front leg paws pressing down his chest, ready to deliver the final kill blow. At this point, Ethan could feel its hot, foul breath fill his nostrils as the bear bit deep into his shoulder and held on as if to enjoy the taste of Ethan's blood. The excruciating pain grew so intense that Ethan's vision blurred. Like prey in its predator's mouth, Ethan thrashed and kicked at the bear, trying to free himself from its snare, but the grizzly was too powerful for him. Ethan almost gave up and let the bear have his way with him, but suddenly, the bear paused. It stopped biting onto his shoulder and lifted its head, with its ears twitching, as if it had been distracted by something in the distance. Despite the pain he was in, Ethan heard what had captured the attention of the bear. It was the engine sound of a park ranger's car approaching them. Disappointed for being interrupted during a meal, the grizzly let out a loud growl, released him, and lumbered back into the underbrush, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. Ethan lay on the ground, barely conscious, his body trembling from shock and blood loss. His breaths came in ragged gasps as he tried to assess his injuries, the world spinning around him. A few minutes later, the park ranger arrived, where Ethan was lying helplessly waiting for death's embrace due to the amount of blood he had lost. Seeing the condition the bear had left Ethan in, the ranger rushed into immediate action. He called for backup and started administering first aid to Ethan by trying to stop the endless bleeding. By the time the helicopter arrived to airlift Ethan to safety, he was drifting in and out of consciousness. This is because he had suffered severely deep bites, puncture wounds, a dislocated shoulder, and a few broken ribs. Fortunately for him, it was not his day to die. The news of the grizzly bear attack spread like wildfire. Everyone was talking about it, and it shocked many, especially experts, since, according to them, grizzly bears were not supposed to be in places like Texas. In an attempt to make sense of this, some argued that the creature had wandered off from its usual habitat, while others believed that the creature had been displaced by environmental changes. Whether the experts knew the answers or not, it was clear that the wilderness, no matter how familiar it seemed, could always harbor unexpected dangers. When he gained consciousness in the hospital where he was getting treated, Ethan immediately asked for the ranger who had saved him from the jaws of the grizzly bear. Although he had received treatment, his wounds were still too deep, and he had lost a lot of blood. He needed more time to heal his wounds so as to get cleared by the doctors and be discharged. Having been saved from death's embrace, Ethan used his recovery time to contemplate a lot about his decisions. Had he not pursued the unexplored area, none of this could have happened. Despite surviving, Ethan's close encounter with death would be a reminder to all hikers that even in places where danger feels distant, nature's unpredictability could strike in an instant. Yet Ethan was not the only person attacked by a grizzly and barely escaped with his life. In Wyoming, Danny Lane's day began like so many others. It was filled with anticipation and a love for the outdoors. Danny was a seasoned hiker and had spent years trekking through different wilderness ever since he was a boy. That day, the Wyoming wilderness was calling his name. He woke up early, packed his gear, and went for a solo hike through the quiet forested trails. As daring as that was, the morning air was soothing to him. On top of that, the sky was clear, and everything about the day felt perfect for a good meditative hike. As he ventured deeper into the wilderness, Danny kept his senses sharp, knowing the area was home to different species of wildlife, including bears. These bears were unpredictable, so one needed to be prepared. Knowing this and being responsible, Danny carried a bear spray and stayed alert. Being strapped, he felt confident and at peace, enjoying the solitude and beauty of the wilderness. The only thing that broke the silence were distant sound of birds and the rustling of leaves made by his footsteps. After hours of hiking, he came upon a clearing where a small bear suddenly appeared just ahead of him. It wasn't large, maybe an older cub, and it stared at him with curiosity as soon as it saw him. Danny's instincts kicked in immediately, since where there's a cub, a protective mother is usually nearby. He quickly reached for his bear spray, heart pounding, knowing this could become a dangerous situation. And before he made another step, out of the corner of his eye, he saw her. The mother grizzly was charging at him from the trees, faster than he could have imagined. In the split second before impact, Danny barely had time to react. He had the bear spray in hand, but hadn't had a chance to use it against the creature. The massive bear knocked him off his feet before he could do anything more. Danny hit the ground hard, knowing what he had to do to survive. He laced his fingers behind his neck, curled up tightly, and pretended to be dead, trying to protect his vital areas. His heart raced as the bear bit into him, its powerful jaws sinking into his back and legs. The pain was sharp, but Danny knew that moving or fighting back would only make things worse. As he lay there, preparing himself for another bite, hoping for a miracle to happen, something unexpected happened. The bear's teeth bit on the can of bear spray in his hand. The canister burst open, releasing a cloud of bear spray directly into the bear's face. Immediately, the bear let out a loud grunt, stumbling back in confusion and sharp pain. Dazed by the burning spray, the grizzly turned and fled into the trees, leaving Danny battered but alive. Once the bear had retreated, Danny knew he had to get to safety as quickly as he could. He was badly injured, bleeding from the bites, and in shock. Having no other option but the will to survive, he pushed himself to his feet and started walking. But it was not an easy task. Each step sent waves of pain through his body. He found himself a spot with cell phone coverage, and after what felt like an eternity, he managed to make the call for help. After a few minutes, a helicopter arrived with rangers. They did first aid on him and airlifted Danny out of the wilderness. This is because by the time they reached him, he was very exhausted. On top of that, his body trembled from the adrenaline and the blood he had lost. The rangers carefully loaded him into the helicopter, reassuring him that he was going to make it. At the hospital, Danny was treated for multiple puncture wounds and deep lacerations, but his condition was stable. After being discharged from the hospital, he managed to get into contact with one of the rangers who saved his life. He explained how everything happened so fast that he barely had time to react. The ranger told him that the bear had attacked him to protect her cub. Although vicious, the attack wasn't out of the ordinary for a mother grizzly caught off guard. Danny was lucky that the bear spray had worked. Otherwise, he would have been made lunch for the bear.